Welcome back to Inside the Box. I'm your host, Joanna Lee, and we are in the third episode of 2021's Asian Heritage Month series. Today's guest is the artistic director, Erhu player, vocalist, composer, and producer of several groups in Vancouver, such as Sound of Dragon Music Festival, ProliferAsian, and JUNO-nominated group, Orchid Ensemble. She has made solo appearances with orchestras all over the world, such as Vancouver Symphony Orchestra, Orchestra Metropolitan, Symphony Nova Scotia, Vancouver InterCultural Orchestra, Atlas Ensemble, and Little Giant Chinese Chamber Orchestra. Some of these solo appearances included works of her own. Known for integrating different genres outside of traditional contexts, she is well-versed as an innovator with improvisation and thinking outside the box. Her compositions and performances have been released on numerous recordings, winning International Independent Music Awards and nominations by JUNO, Canadian Independent Music Awards, Canadian Folk Music Awards, and Western Canadian Music Awards. Please give a warm welcome to the talented and accomplished Lan Tung. Welcome, Lan. It is so great to have you here today.
Thank you.
So, can you tell us about your origin story and how you got to where you are musically today?
I came from Taiwan in 1994. I've been studying the Erhu since I was 10 years old. And just like here we have, like few people have school bands for the kids. And in Taiwan we have other options, including Chinese orchestra. And that's how I started, how I was introduced to the instrument in the school. And I think that lasts for many years, from elementary to high school, and senior high school, and then to university. So I was always in Chinese orchestra, and at the same time taking private lessons on my own. Mm-hmm. And so I came here in 94. I was still in the middle of university, and I was in Chinese music program in Taiwan, Erhu major. Mm-hmm. And then when I came on, of course, there's no Erhu major for music school here. So I started to prepare and take music therapy.
Are you practicing as a music therapist currently?
Not anymore. I was working for 10 years in senior home for like very small part-time, like 3 hours a week. And when the job finished, because due to financial losses in the institution, and like a lot of therapists had to go. It was just around the Winter Olympics time, some problem with gaming funding. And then, so after that, I never recovered from the loss of gaming. And most of the therapists there like secondary service, so we were funded by gaming. And anyway, I did not look for another music therapy job after that because really I've been touring a lot. Mm-hmm. Pretty much non-stop since the late 90s. Oh, wow. And that's the only place was actually letting me to go on tour that much, because mm-hmm. they had 2 therapists. So I have 3 weeks tour in the spring, 3 weeks tour in the fall, sometimes tour in the summer. Mm-hmm. And then I go on traveling to another country for 1 to 2 months. So that's almost half of the year I'm in and out. So really, like I was busy enough. So after that, I didn't look for another music therapy job.
It's great that, you chose to continue with performance.
Yeah, just and also I was running number of ensembles already. So basically, like I have a lot of admin work to do behind this like off the stage. So it's pretty busy enough.
Absolutely. So what made you break out from traditional Erhu playing to something that's more contemporary?
I think it's a very natural, just I always just drawn to the music that interests me. Is the most important thing, that to choose projects and choose who I work with, really based on what interests me, what I like. And of course, when I first came, I didn't know much about it. Even in the 90s, it's very different from now. Like now, we could say a lot. Due to the internet, people learn about other culture, other music a lot more easily than it used to be. So in the 90s, without the internet, it's like you do what you do, and you may hear someone doing something in a different country, but you don't get to hear, like you don't know what exactly, and not much access of traditional music of other countries, other cultures. Even in Asia, like doesn't mean we hear not much music even from the countries around you. But Vancouver's very different environments, with people living very close by together, and the communities are small, the city isn't too big, and a lot of festival and events will hire musicians and groups from different cultures, and a lot of performances were like back to back. So in Vancouver, it's actually like in the 90s when I first came, was an eye-opening experience to learn about the different cultures and to find things that very interesting that I didn't know about.
Speaking of interest, can you tell us more about the history of the Erhu?
The Erhu is about 1,000 years old, and this instrument was not invented by Chinese. Actually, it came from Central Asia. Like the origin of all bow instruments, and when going to the west, it became eventually the violin. But to the east, because so many different instruments came from this origin, and become different instruments. Eventually, after blending with the local culture, using the materials locally, and become the local traditional instruments. And instruments look like the Erhu, or like other many variations, even just in China. But the Erhu in the last century become the standard classical instrument that's studied in conservatory, and the making becomes standardized. But there are the folk versions who may have used different materials, totally different sound, different techniques, and used to accompany different opera, different folk singing. And because like most fiddle instruments from around the world, the early role was to accompany singing. And you also find in Egyptian revival players, they are mainly storytellers. They play and then they tell a story. They play and they tell a story. So like storytelling and have narrative singing, so mixing. So Erhu, this type of instrument in China, was majorly the lead instrument in opera orchestras to accompanying singers, and of course there are other roles like in instrumental music, small ensembles as well. But all the different regional operas will have a different type of this instrument as a lead.
Are these regional operas in Asia specifically? Is there in China or Taiwan?
In China, so different province has like different areas, different regions have different opera. That because if you know about Chinese language, there's very diverse, like many different dialects that sound completely different. Not just like British English and American English. Yeah. It's so much more different that the people don't even understand each other. And so of course the local opera for the local people will have very different flavor, different sound, different style, and the music is very different, and the instrument they use is from local as well.
Absolutely. do you mind giving us a demonstration to our audience on different performance techniques on the Erhu?
Sure, no problem. The Erhu is one of the most popular Chinese instruments, and this instrument has a long history, going back for about 1,000 years. But this instrument originally came from Central Asia. It was not invented by Chinese, and the instrument traveled along the Silk Road to Central China. And this instrument has 2 strings. It may sound like a violin, but the technique is actually quite different. And first is because the bow is placed in between the 2 strings. So if I put it closer, you can see. Therefore, the technique is moving the bow back and forth in between the 2 strings using both the inside and the outside of the hair. And also, the strings are struck very far away from the stick, so this does not function like a fingerboard, like a guitar or a violin, where you will press the strings against the wood. But on the Erhu, you only press the strings, and without too much pressure, it doesn't reach over the wood, only stop in the air. And this gives you the freedom to control the vibration and also making the very characteristic expressive sound for the Erhu. And this is one of the instruments very important for vocal music and accompanying different vocal styles. And for example, for folk songs, so this is like a southern style for Chinese music, very ornamented, lots of glissandos and ornaments. But also, it can be more dramatic. And of course, Erhu can also play some more faster pieces, happier pieces, like the birds. This is a very versatile instrument, and today we also use it to play contemporary music, music from different cultures, and also to play improviser music. So just like a Western violin, you can play in different styles, and you can also do that with instruments from different cultures.
Thank you, Lan, for that demonstration. That was absolutely wonderful. So my next question is, where do you get your inspiration as both a performer and composer?
From the music I hear, from the people I play with, and I often not just writing for the instrument, I writing for the people. Like I actually didn't study composition in the traditional sense in school. My background for composition comes from improvisation. Mm-hmm. And improvisation is to compose music on the spot. And if a solo, then you're composing the whole thing on your own. And if you're playing with other people, then you're composing together and taking inspiration from each other. And my teacher, one of my teachers in improvised music and composition was a very guy. He's bass player from England. But a lot of time he's traveling and based in different countries as well. And I went to study with him in his home in Switzerland. And so he also talked about he's known to write the music for large ensemble of improvisers. And so he showed me on this, like when he writes, and he says like always write for the person he's writing for, not just for the instruments. Or even on his score, he has the musicians' names on them. And that's very inspiring, because if you know who you're writing for, you know what their strengths are and what they like to do, and that always works better that way. And so when you're running your own ensembles, and you really have the luxury to be able to know the player and writing directly for the players. So most of my pieces, which may be played by other people later, but when it was first written, was really clear who's written for.
Absolutely. Wow, that's wonderful, especially since it seems like you get to know the musician first and their style, and then decide on how to make the composition work for your performance.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how do you decide on who to collaborate with?
Of course, I'll listen to other people playing and listen to the musicians I like. Maybe a lot of the projects I do, I am the one initiating. For example, so Orchid Ensemble, I started in 1997, and so over 20 years, we have collaborated with many different guest musicians, and a lot of that was based on very thematic projects. Like one of our earliest projects was exploring different cultures of the Silk Road. So that was something we started from the late 90s, 2000, like the first 10 years. And that inspired us to do collaborations with musicians from cultures around the Silk Road. So we work with Persian musicians and Indian musicians, and also multimedia with images from the different cultures, and also commissioning composers we know can write in styles or inspiration from those traditions that we can mix together. And from after that, I started to work more into interdisciplinary projects. So because I found it very interesting to incorporate visual aspects or with dance, with music. So it's more than a concert, become a show, and that was, for me, it's pretty exciting as a musician to see beyond the concert stage. And then the projects were even more thematic. So including working with dancers on stories of Chinese diaspora, and interviewing people and putting together the narratives. And also one project was interesting called the Ghost Project, working with Indonesian music master Sutrisno, doing traditional dance, and we mixing with gamelan music with Kenneth Newby and Alexandra Dulich, with multimedia projection, and very colorful, and also with like the things about ghosts. So much you can do, so you really play with your imagination. And then just through different things, and I was interested in flamenco dance, flamenco music. So I spent a few years learning that, and working with Mosaico Flamenco Dance Theater, and on a number of projects. But one of the really long-lasting interests is always in Indian music. In like from around 2005, for a number of years, I was involved in a band called Tandava, and that's folk music mainly focused on Indian style. And for that, I've gone to study in India 3 times. and learning like how, adopting techniques from Indian violin to the Erhu, and learning the raga and how the rhythms works, and just have an understanding how that tradition works, and that also influenced my compositions greatly. Now we're back to working with this tradition, the Orchid Ensemble and our collaborators, including Curtis Andrews and Vidya and the Persian 8-player Amir. So we have like a group of mixed musicians and composers together, and everyone's contributing compositions to put together. So we get to study the style again, and now we are doing it quite differently from some of the project where musicians get together in the final few days before concert and put together a program. This for this project we have proposed, and we are doing it during a long period of developing. So we meet twice a month over a year to work together, composing and developing works and rehearsing together, and to really know how each other plays, and revising pieces along the way. And also the pieces not just written by one person and finished with it. Like after we bring the piece to the group, and then someone may have different ideas, and then we will change and adopt and further develop. So each piece has a mix of different styles, not just here we have Chinese piece, here we have Indian piece, here we have Persian piece. I like to see how the different genres actually coexist in the same piece of music.
Absolutely. Wow, that sounds amazing, especially since you have so many cultures integrated and so many genres as well on top of that. And it sounds like you're constantly studying different cultures through a musical approach.
Yes, yeah, and that goes integrates was part into leisure travels as well. I have traveled to different countries to study music, and then spending 1 to 2 months there, and that allows me to live in the culture, surrounded by the sound, the food, the smell, the colors. So in addition to India, I went to Egypt and Morocco and Spain and Inner Mongolia and Xinjiang, the Uyghur people. So and so like for studies, and in addition to that, I also went traveling to many other places during our raining winter months in Vancouver. Go somewhere sunny and actually too hot.
Absolutely. I mean, why not? Speaking of musical influences, who was your biggest musical influence?
Over time, it's really different because, of course, all the people I study with, and also people I play with and people I listen to. And maybe I can say one event's very influential to me was the annual Vancouver Jazz Festival. Maybe all the surprise for many people. Why would I find most inspiration from that? But I think especially as an improviser and a composer, if you play in a festival, you can go to a lot of the festivals with your artist pass if there's a space. And the series I've always been most interested in was the ones of avant-garde improvisation, and usually the Ironworks series, and some of you sometimes had a performance works on grand violin, and also the Western Front. Like those series have more of improvised music. Yes. And the festival has always been presenting some of the top players from around the world, and you can hear so that everyone's different approach. I'm really interested in compositions written for improvisers, because when you are totally free, actually you're at more doing of what you always do. Like when you're so free, then people are easily to fall into what you always do. But if you're given compositions, you're given instructions and frameworks, and then you are being asked to do something, and that may be different one from what you instantly would be doing. So and also I like the compositions being distinct and recognizable, and so therefore I like the compositions for improvisers, that you have a structure and also have the freedom at the same time. So it's recognizable as the piece, but every time when you perform it's different. So in those concerts at Jazz Festival, I can hear so many different approaches of writing for improviser, and then also of course improvisers from different backgrounds, and everyone have their different bag of tricks and different expression. That's always very inspiring. I think that kind of energy can be applied into different genre, different style of music. And so that's like one of the reoccurring events that are always very exciting to be part of.
Absolutely. I mean, it does make sense since you do a lot of improvisation, and jazz is the very foundation of improvisation. So it sounds like you also like the challenge of continuing that sort of journey, and it, holds you accountable not to get complacent and be comfortable, but rather grow and learn and try new things. Yeah. So speaking of growth, how did you get involved with 3 different groups, and what do your current roles involve?
So I guess the groups we are mentioning are Orchid Ensemble and Sound of Dragon.
Yeah.
And that was ProliferAsian, or?
Yes, ProliferAsian.
Okay. Yes. So I started all those groups. So Orchid Ensemble was the first one. I started in 1997. And that was pretty much my main focus for like 10 years. In around 2004, 5, about maybe around 2003, I joined Tandava, which is not the group I started. But speaking of that, Vancouver InterCultural Orchestra probably started it also about almost 20 years. Can't remember exactly which year, but after Orchid Ensemble and before my other projects. And so I actually was after there was a big like North American big folk music showcase in Vancouver. There was a Vancouver World Music Collective, like 10 ensembles in Vancouver got together to form a collective for promotion. And we also made a film together of all the Vancouver World Music ensembles with leaders meeting together, creating a piece to perform at Vancouver Folk Festival. So this late 90s, early 2000 something, like when there were so many great world musicians in Vancouver working together. And so Vancouver, so Vancouver InterCultural Orchestra started after that. I was part of the inspiration and started by Moshe Denver, one of the composers I've been working with from the beginning. And so that's why I've been a founding member of the orchestra. So that's not my own group, but I've been with the orchestra from the beginning. And then after that, then I joined Tandava. And then after that, I formed a group called the Birds of Paradox, and it was because after Vancouver Jazz Festival had a few summers doing called the Creative Music Institute, with all the great improvisers came to perform in Vancouver. They came the artist director of the time, but for all many years until he passed away. So he decided to have the institute so the musicians will come early and teach people who are interested in learning improvisation. Mm-hmm. So a lot of young players, like already experienced musicians, join. So I think I joined 3 years in a row, and after that, I think after 1 year, and finally, the director, Paul primarily introduced me to the director, and then Ken said, "What do you want to do?" So I said, "Okay, now what do you want to do?" So I think I thought about it, and then I formed a group, VersaParadox, with Ron Sanders, electric guitar, who I played with a lot, and also Neil Dillon, tabla and saxophone, and whom I played with also since the 90s. So we started a trio, and that's when I start to compose for improvised musician. Mm-hmm. And in that trio, like all three of us compose. And after Neil moved to California and not coming back, and I think was when I started to plan for ProliferAsian. Mm-hmm. And so now it's been many years already. And ProliferAsian is really designed to perform my composition for improvised musicians. Mm-hmm. Sort of a maturing of the idea from VersaParadox prepared me, but I had a help and had shared responsibility of composition with the other great musicians. And then with ProliferAsian, I would be ready to do my own project, like most improvisers having their own band, playing their own compositions. So that's the history of how the different ensembles happened over time. Mm-hmm. And then I think 2013, I received a grant from the Canada Council to create a music festival featuring Chinese music. Mm-hmm. So that's the beginning of the Sound of Dragon Music Festival. And it became a recurring festival for every 2 years. And the festival features not just Chinese music, it's actually diverse genres with Chinese music as the roots or inspiration. And most of the projects being featured at the festival are actually collaboration between cultures and between musicians. Mm-hmm. And so the first year of the festival was 2014. We had 20 concerts and all different projects and featuring all the diversity in Vancouver, also with guests from Taiwan and with a major event. And then I think after that, so 2015, I started to prepare to have a festival song ensemble. Mm-hmm. And because as a festival director, you can program things that people are doing, things have been already happening, and you can, in some degree, facilitate the collaboration. But if you have your own ensemble, then you can really put the artist's vision into reality. So I started the Sound of Dragon ensemble based on this reason. Mm-hmm. And so that's most ensemble of 8 players, and half Chinese instruments, half Western instruments, and it's pairing of 2 wind instruments, 2 bowl instruments, 3, 2 Erhu and cello, and then guitar and run like pluck instruments, and then percussion instruments from different cultures, like a pairing of the different family of instruments, and also having some of the best players playing both Chinese and contemporary music together. So that's how the ensemble started. as a festival on the festival ensemble, and then become more independent, having its own regular events. And so that's the birth of Sound of Dragon Ensemble.
It's great that you incorporate both traditional music and Western music as well, because it shows that there's connection and integration between the two, and sort of bridges the gap between East and West. So yeah, I can certainly appreciate that.
Yeah, because you want to find something that hasn't been done, right? So there are, of course, great Western contemporary music ensembles. Like Turning Point Ensemble, I work with a lot, and then and there are a number of Chinese ensembles. So first of all, I was thinking Sound of Dragon Ensemble will be a larger scale than the Orchid Ensemble.
Yes.
And so larger scale with more instruments, and also most Chinese ensembles, they may have like some Western players, I guess, come and go, but mostly Chinese instruments. And I want to make an ensemble that is equally mixed. So that's different from what's already happening. So we're not like repeating and stepping on each other's toes, not to say the same.
Speaking of projects, what are your recent and upcoming projects?
So recently we just did a collaboration with Uzume Taiko. And we actually worked together 2003, according to Ban Sung, the director of Uzume Taiko. I couldn't remember exactly which year, but she said 2003. And so we also met through doing the same showcases, showing up at some festivals, and so that time we decided to do a theater production together, and it was I think it was very inspiring for me to get into things more theatrical and more movement was from that collaboration. Because as you know, Taiko's not just audio like music; it's about movement and the energy and staging and lighting and all that. And so Uzume Taiko has currently an online video series. We just recorded and had our first concert last week, and I think it's a ticketed event. But I think they will try to make a way that people can watch it if you miss the streaming. So that's the latest video we've done. And Orchid Ensemble also did a full 45 minutes video of educational program. And now it's being presented to the Milwaukee School District in the US, because we work there every spring for 10 years for the elementary students. And we couldn't go, so this year from last year, and so this year we made video for the presentation, and we're going to also edit the video for our own use and have available for Canadian schools.
That's wonderful, and what a great way to educate the world with different cultures, especially with your ensemble and your compositions.
Yeah, because now there's no school show, and a lot of students are studying at home. So I think that if it's a really good idea. We'll have very well made a school presentation video, integrating with participation and question and answer. And after the presentation, the teacher arranged for a Zoom meeting with the students with us, so they can still experience some of the interaction part of the presentation. So I think this can be a good supplement to live performance for some schools that may be hard to get to and very far away, or when we don't have enough to plan for a tour. So that is for some remote areas, as they do not have to wait. This is a nice alternative of a different way of presenting and performing.
Absolutely. And speaking of education, with the way of the world today, how can we bring in cultural diversity and openness to society during Asian Heritage Month?
Well, I don't think Asian Heritage Month is the only time, of course. Yeah. For us, it's more we're living it all the time. So I never really think, particularly when or like has to be special projects, special events, because I think we are pretty much living it and doing it all the time. It is ingraining all our projects. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the concerts we produce are accompanying with outreach events before or after. So sometimes there are lectures, mm-hmm. and sometimes there are workshops. Sometimes things people can participate and ask questions. But I guess during the pandemics, there are more video things being made. Mm-hmm. And I am working on doing a series of documentary for planning for a new YouTube channel of Sound Dragon Spotlight for musicians of Chinese origin from across Canada. Mm-hmm. And so that will give a chance of to meet and learn about music from different from the practitioners.
Absolutely. And you'll have to share all these links with me so that I can put it down in the description box.
This haven't started yet. We just received the funding, so that will be the work this year. That's the documentary. Yeah. And I'm hoping to be able to do a podcast as well. So going with the time and learning new technology.
Absolutely. I mean, why not? It's the pandemic and it inspires us to think outside the box, right?
Yeah. Yeah, like this you're doing.
Well, I try. So you're a very accomplished lady, and I was wondering, what are your proudest accomplishments?
Can't say one thing, but the latest project is a featured dance concert at the Chen Center's online series. So Chen Center usually the main stage concerts only feature like international touring artists or big names. But this year, because of the pandemics, they can't have those major concerts with people gathering and with people traveling from different countries. So this season, starting from last fall, I've been doing online concerts and mostly featuring local musicians. So we get the opportunity to play on the big Chen Center stage. And that is really one of the best stages in Vancouver. Maybe is among the best, and really great sound. So in this project, basically is featuring me as a soloist and a collaborator, and half the program was me with Turning Point Ensemble, playing two pieces by Montreal composer Tim Brady. And so one piece is so it's both the Erhu string quintet, and so one piece is everything's composed, and so more like a mini concerto. And then the second piece, the strings are composed, my parts totally improvised.
Oh wow!
So the two pieces are very, very different. And then the other half of the program was me performing, improvising with cellist Marina Hasselberg. Mm-hmm. So this is another ensemble that I didn't mention earlier. The duo with Erhu and cello, but I also use voice a lot. And when most and half the programs improvised. It's pretty much open, free improvisation, and then we also have some music of arrangements of more traditional Chinese piece. And so basically, yeah, it's also duo with the Erhu cello, and that was the other half of the program. And this is still being still on air now until the end of May.
Okay.
We'll finish the Trend Center season, so they have this. This is the last chance to watch.
Okay,
and
we'll share the link.
That it will be taken offline. So
yes,
go to watch. Check Trend Center website for the link.
Yes. Okay. And we'll definitely share the link in the description below. As a leader in the Asian arts community, how would you help or inspire future generations?
I think the young generation have their own ideas. They don't really need help. They just need opportunities. Mm-hmm. So the festival is one way of doing that. We provide a platform. And if people have interesting projects, then we will program. Also, if with the ensembles we work with, we also commission, and also we do cover scores. Mm-hmm. So if we do cover scores for emerging composers and can submit pieces and propose to write for us, and so then we workshop the music, and if it works well for us, we will perform and record. So these are all different opportunities, and also with various projects I work with, always we look for different collaborators and people from different backgrounds and disciplines, and we may be working with. And like when I started to work in the 90s, I was always the youngest among all the artists. Just in my early 20s, so when I started.
Wow.
And then gradually over the time, the age become to I become in the middle, and later but so naturally we will be working with younger artists, younger people, in just if people are into it and being consistent, mm-hmm. and there are always opportunities. I think it's the most important to be I like to work with people who are reliable and responsible.
Absolutely.
I think that's probably the most important thing. It's because in Canada we all wear many different hats and have different roles. Yes. So if people can independently do their job well, there are always opportunities.
You're absolutely right about that. And I do respect that philosophy. I am on board with that philosophy, particularly because it's important to be consistent and on time and to be reliable. That's, the key to being a successful musician and to getting the job.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really well said. So what does it personally mean to be of Asian heritage?
So this is an interesting thing because when you're in Asia, no one will ever ask you that.
Of course.
This is so for me when I first came, it's so interesting. Why do people keep pointing out that how I look? Because I've looked like this for 20 years and no one has ever pointed out. It was and so since when has that become my identity? If people living in Asia are never being reminded that you're Asian.
That is true.
So most of the time, I think in my mind, I still continue this way. Just like me, I'm just a person, not necessarily this culture or that culture. But of course, I am aware how other people see me.
Yes.
yeah, wherever you go to, the first thing they see a Chinese woman.
Mm-hmm.
That's or they don't know where you're from. They just see like they don't know I'm actually from Taiwan, but they will see Asian for sure, right? So I'm aware of what people see, but it doesn't mean I have to fit into the description.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah, and I think I just be comfortable of who I am, and especially when you get older, you just know that really doesn't matter. But of course, we have our communities. Right? We have people we are coming from the same place, sharing the same experience, having the same interest of food, and people you feel close to, and so you have your communities. That's a different thing. But I guess because for me is I also have so much interaction and work, and both fun and and work outside my ethnic community.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's not as much of this is my community and this is my priority. For me, I feel more integrated in general. But I do have to say that during the pandemics, I also experienced more racism than ever in Vancouver, sadly. Like even I do not see myself that way. Like I'm not thinking I'm Asian when I walk out of the door. That's certainly not what I have on my mind. I'm just walking the dog. I'm just doing what I do. But other people have the perception is different from what I perceive myself. And so unfortunately there were cases.
Yeah.
And even when I walk by a school in my neighborhood, and the high school kids told me to get out of their school property.
That's really awful.
Yeah, and they were like throwing stones.
Oh wow! So there was assault involved in this.
Well, yeah, not a big stone, but just more of a little fun kind of thing of insulting, basically. Provoking and insulting, not trying to like hurt you, but was very unfriendly. And so I wonder, like, who taught this to the teenagers, like, how they pick up racism.
Mm-hmm.
So it's from the society, from the family, from the school, they because when we go to schools to play music.
Yes.
And the young kids, they don't have a racism idea in their head if no one has given to them, right? When the kids are first growing up, when they're really young, they don't see the different color skin. They just like my friend, like just different people when we all first started. So where does this come from? Sort of into the young person's mind.
And I'm so sorry that happened to you. That's really tragic that people today still think that way. I'm sure that this is still the case, and this has been the case even before the pandemic. And I personally have also experienced racism myself, being of Asian heritage. But you're right. Your identity does not define your ethnicity, and your ethnicity shouldn't define who you are as a person. And I believe that is the lesson that should be given to, anyone who is an adolescent, that is going into their teens, that's going into young adulthood, and should be more educated and woke on this subject. And there should not be any violence, especially towards women. And being a woman of color, you should not have experienced that. So I'm sorry that happened to you.
Thank you.
I'm proud that you persevered and you keep on showing up for these educational shows and performing in the community. That's still wonderful, and it shows that you're a resilient person.
Yeah. And after that event, also I still walk there. I can't be afraid of walking in my own neighborhood because of them. I've never seen them again, but but the first few days was a little weird every time I walk over there.
Yes.
And then eventually I forget about that. But I think you can't let them stop you.
Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that. And I was also wondering, how would you celebrate Asian Heritage Month this year?
So the show with Wuzume Taiko is to be designed for Asian Heritage Month. So that was aired on May 1st. And so other than that, I haven't planned particular events myself, because I think there's so much happening during Asian Heritage Month.
Yes.
So I usually produce same events, maybe the Sound of Dragon Festival used to be April, May during Asian Heritage Month.
Yes.
But then of course, so since last year we couldn't have the festival. So now we are in the process of preparing videos for the next festival. There will be a long online festival, and we're going to release in the summer this year. Originally, we would be recording soon next week of new videos, but because there are so many new cases, so we are postponing the recording session to July, hoping it will calm down a little bit and be safer for people to be together.
So Lan, it was really great to have you here today. Thank you for sharing your story and for sharing your time as well and your talents. And to our audiences, thank you for your time. It's always great to have you here, and as always, your support means everything. So please stay tuned to the very end, as there will be a performance of Lan, and you will definitely not want to miss it. Enjoy, and don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for future episodes. In the meantime, please be well, practice kindness, openness, safe social distancing protocols, so that we may all be able to gather in person and support wonderful artists like Lan. Take care. Bye.
Bye.